up, everybody? Welcome to Trainer Talk on the Burn Bootcamp Podcast. Special guest today. I got our fitness specialist here at Burn Bootcamp HQ, Luke Smith. Luke, what's going on, brother?
What's going on, man? Glad to be here.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you. Trainer Talk is a segment, for those of you that don't know, a segment on the Burn Bootcamp Podcast where I interview and interact with the trainers in Burn Nation. I get to learn a little something. I love having guests like Luke in because, listen, let me just admit something to everybody right now, Luke, okay? So there was once a time, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 years old, 29 even, maybe a little bit into 30, when my number one thing that I was focused on was my fitness and my nutrition education, and really I would pride myself in knowing like kinesiology and anatomy and how those land practically, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Since about 5 years ago, I switched pretty much 100% of my focus to business and to entrepreneurship. And so while I stopped doing a lot of research and development, we brought you on board here, and you picked it up. Matt Morris picked it up. You guys are 1-2 punch here at HQ, and you guys are really my backbone for the health and fitness stuff now. And I just want everybody to know that Luke is the expert, and it is not me. I only can take it as far as I took it, and that was till about.
And I was still very far.
That was pretty far. It was pretty far, and I still have a lot of that knowledge. But we're gonna talk about things today that you've been hot on researching that are here, both in contemporary science. They're here now, and then also they've been here, things that have been here traditionally forever. And so we have a 2-part podcast. Trainer Talk with Luke, you guys. The first part, we're going to be fitness. The second part, we're going to be nutrition. All right, this is going to go over 2 episodes over 2 consecutive weeks. So Trainer Talk happens every single week, and you're going to get here, Luke here 2 weeks in a row, everyone. So
special treat.
You're welcome. Okay, you're welcome. Just make sure that you tag me, DM me, thank me and Luke for being here today, because this is going to be a treat. I know he's excited. So grab your coffees if you're on your commute, sit back, enjoy the Burn Bootcamp Podcast. We're going to get into Trainer Talk. We're going to start with fitness. Our second episode is going to be nutrition. Luke Smith, are you ready to go?
Yes, sir. Let's get it.
All right. So my first question for you today, as we talk about some fitness stuff, is what is a movement that you see people, a lower body movement? Let's talk about that. What's a lower body movement you see people maybe struggling with? Something that they could get better at. If you had some tips for us on one movement, what would that be?
I think that would have to be the dumbbell RDL, and that's that's a prominent thing we do, upstairs at Burn.
So for those of us that can't visualize what a dumbbell RDL is, explain to me what that's supposed to look like from the time I pick my weight up to the time that I set it down.
So I guess if we're starting just standing up, if we're picking our dumbbells up off the floor, we obviously want to deadlift them up, so always protecting our lower back and creating a neutral spine. But once we get those dumbbells standing up, we want to be able to, it's a hinge movement. We always want to create neutral spine through cervical, thoracic, and lumbar spine, so top to bottom of your spine. And as we hinge over, I think the biggest thing that I see is too much hinging. So taking the dumbbells down too far. I'd say there's passive and active range of motion, and we only want to hinge as far down from our shins as we can till we feel tension. I think upstairs or anywhere in any gym, really, people want to take the dumbbells down too far towards the ankles. So therefore, when you bend over too far, your thoracic spine rounds, so the middle of your back, you see a lot of people
rounding
like
their
this,
back.
rounding that middle part of their back, and that's going to create a lot of tension and pressure on their lower back. So now, not only are we setting them up to get hurt, but now it's just not as optimal. So
what are we trying to feel in our hamstrings? Are we trying to feel
a pull? Yeah,
like
pull. So as you descend, you're lengthening the hamstring.
You said active and passive tension? Or range of motion?
Passive and active range of motion.
Unpack that for us. What's that
mean? So an active range of motion is where the muscle is actively engaged through the range of motion that you want to work in. And so yes, you can see people that have an incredible active range of motion where they can take the dumbbells way past their ankles. Now, is that actually going to help build the muscle and engage it actively? No, probably not. So we want to go through the active range of motion where they can engage it and have the muscle fire in the way you want it to.
So when you see somebody like standing up on top of a box or something, and classically they'll have a barbell usually when you see this movement. We use dumbbells. We can get into that if you'd like. But when you see people up on a box and they're doing that deficit motion on the RDL, so you're saying unnecessary?
I would consider that unnecessary. I think it looks good on Instagram.
Why do people do that? If it's anatomically and hypertrophically unnecessary, why do people want to get past that range of motion? Why do they feel empowered to bring 185, 225 pound barbell below their toes? I've always looked at it and been like, oh, it doesn't look like it's healthy, natural, useful.
Right.
But like, why?
I think what some people use it for, I mean, if you're using 225, I would consider that definitely too heavy if you're trying to work through a passive range of motion. But I know a lot of people use that to build strength in their lumbar spine. So your erectors that surround like right above your butt crack, those muscles right there, you can use exercise like that to help strengthen. But I wouldn't use it as a primary mover for, creating hypertrophy or building muscle.
So when I cut my teeth into fitness, outside of kind of the strength and conditioning world, which is like the athletic world, performance-based training, I got released from the Giants, which kind of cut that access off to my Central Michigan Chippewa days and rolling into the San Francisco Giants days. I had all of these CS, 4-year, 8-year exercise guys around me, really there to like help me navigate those waters. Well, getting released and then going into like the box gym, I worked at Lifestyle Family Fitness as my first fitness job. I really cut my teeth there, and I worked out with a guy named Pete, and Pete would put 220, 285. He's a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
Like, this dude was a strong dude.
Yeah.
Like, and he would put 285 on the barbell and like do these deficits. And I'm like, bro, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm gonna rip my hamstrings off my body, and then here he is just like repping it out.
Yeah.
And so, like, is there a sports-specific reason to maybe go below that deficit is what I'm asking? Like, if you're a bodybuilder, is the purpose, to activate those paraspinal muscles like you're talking about? Or is it just something that looks good that bodybuilders have been doing for years that isn't actually?
Well, honestly, I think over the years, I think people have learned how to train more efficiently, and I don't think training through passive range of motion is always going to be as efficient unless that is what it takes for you to feel something. Because it varies so much person to person. Like what works for you may not work best for Pete because everybody's anatomy is set up just a little bit differently. But from my perspective, I'm probably not going to be taking 315 past my toes.
Not anymore, that's for sure.
No.
So we talk about like the difference between barbell and dumbbell, and I want to know if I have my own opinions about this, but your opinion. Now you were a trainer at what location again?
New Braunfels.
New Braunfels. Yep. And so in Texas, and so 5 years there, thousands and thousands and thousands of camps before you come on board here.
Right.
And we get a chance to work with our pocket of members. How would you explain the difference between like why we use barbells versus dumbbells?
I think the one great thing I love about Burn is I think when you remove the barbell, you remove a lot of ego. So I think you're able to emphasize what you're actually doing and setting a precedent of this is what it should feel like, this is form, and I don't need to ego lift and just load plates on to feel judgment to be accepted by, oh, am I this strong or do I need to be stronger? And when you have dumbbells, you can eliminate a lot of that, the ego lifting to that. I think the barbell has a place, but it stops your range of motion unless you are elevated, which is a good or a bad thing depending on what exactly that you're training for. But upstairs we find ourselves lifting in a lot of hypertrophy rep ranges, so where we're actively trying to build muscle. We're not trying to set PRs every single exercise, so being able to not drive the ego first and be able to grab weights that are going to relatively challenge us within our rep range is always going to be better because it keeps us safe.
Yeah, for sure. No, I can definitely understand that, and I've also seen pictures of the different pelvic tilts that people have, and when it comes to RDLs, I don't think the difference for me personally, a barbell to a dumbbell, is significant outside of what you said, like the more of the mental side of things.
Yeah.
But when I look at the different pelvic tilts of people, I do have an anatomical concern with the fixed range of motion that a barbell creates. When you have dumbbells and I'm able to manipulate my elbows and my hands, which in turn rotates the scaps, which in turn is putting an emphasis on the anterior or posterior side of my body, depending on really where my arms are positioned. What I've found is that if I squat with a barbell versus if I'm squatting with dumbbells, I can obviously lift a lot more with a barbell because I can load plates on. But when it comes to dumbbells, like my form failure, like I can lift a lot of weight with a barbell, but my form failure, if I try to focus on having like perfect form, dumbbells fit my anatomy better because I'm able to have manipulation with my elbows and my feet more easily, and I'm getting to like form failure. So my form has gotten so much better. My weight's really light, but my form's gotten so much better. Do you see that in a progression? Like, do you see, like, then we'll move on from this RDL. Do you see, is there ever a reason somebody needs to go to a barbell after they get to a certain strength, or do dumbbells do the job? You just need to have enough dumbbells.
Yeah, I think dumbbells can do the job. I think barbells have a place in everyone's fitness routine, but I mean, to me, dumbbells suit just fine because you can work through the range of motion that you want with dumbbells. Because like you alluded to, if you have a barbell, it has to be fixed.
Yeah.
And then you have to finagle things, and you spend more time focused on the setup than you actually do the execution of the exercise.
Yeah, I notice it most on chest press for me. Whenever I chest press a barbell, it always hurts my left shoulder.
Yeah,
because I get one position for my hands to be in, right? And as soon as I deviate my wrists to maybe more of a neutral grip or that 45-degree grip, I can press the same amount of weight, even more, because I don't have this impingement. I feel like when I'm rotating my palms away from me and deviating my wrist this way, I got this close off almost of the front deltoid, and it creates this impingement feeling. It's actually in my right shoulder now that I'm thinking about it, because that's my pitching shoulder.
Yeah.
And I've got so many injuries from that over time. So so you agree? Then we think that for an RDL specifically, dumbbell, barbell doesn't really matter in terms of progression. You can progress just as far.
Yeah, so you always need to progressive overload no matter what the exercise
Explain that.
is.
What's
so
that?
Progressive overload. So there's this acronym. It's called the SAID principle. It's specific adaptations to impose demands. Which is
say
really
that slower one more time so everybody can hear it.
SAID principle, specific adaptations to impose demands. SAID. So, and that's really, really important.
See, I told you he's smarter than me. I've never heard of that before.
Just read it on Google right before I walked in. No, just kidding. But it's super, super important to make incremental jumps in your training all the time, because if I walk into camp on my first day and I'm curling 10s, I can't continuously curl 10s and expect to see the same results over time. So you can create imposed demands by lifting heavier weights, having better form, or lifting that same amount for more reps.
Got it. Like the volume equation.
Yeah, I think that's really important because, whenever we're looking for failure, you can find that hypertrophy and find failure. If it's in between 3 reps and 30 reps, you're going to get the same stimulus. I think that's really, really important to think about when it comes to growth and progressive overload, that it doesn't always have to just be the heaviest weights for 6, 8, 10 reps. We can work that rep range up as high as 30.
So why is it important for us let's talk from the lens of a beginner.
Yeah.
Why is it important for us to start slow?
Yeah.
And then when is it about time for us to notice that we need to begin the said principles?
Right.
When those principles exhaust themselves in the first, however long of the fitness journey. When is about that time on average when we should start thinking about adapting and start thinking about picking up heavier weights?
So it's really interesting. So a lot of research has been done on beginners that are first stepping into the gym. Your first 16 workouts is when you can expect to see a lot of progress, because when you're doing a bicep curl, I want to contract the motor neurons in my bicep. As you start curling, more of those fibers will innervate during every rep. So basically, the contraction gets better every single rep because you're learning how to fire those things. Your recruitment's going to be a little bit higher. So really, in those first 16 workouts, you're going to see a lot of growth, and especially when you got those 16 workouts, now that you're moving more efficiently, so now you can expect to see more strength gains, because now, on that first day, you haven't worked out in 5 or 6 years. Now you're walking in, and your muscles don't know what it's like to contract. A lot of people only do the beer curls, and then now you grab a dumbbell, now it's something different.
You are adapting with that lightweight right away.
Yeah, you're adapting with it. So now that I have more motor neurons firing, now I can get stronger.
Yeah.
Because my muscles know, okay, I need to recruit more. This is... I'm not using enough, but I know I have more. And that helps you get stronger. So those first 16 workouts are really, really important, where you should want to be progressing, because you are getting stronger at a rate faster than what the person next to you that maybe has been, if they're working out next to you, they may get initially stronger at a faster rate than what you might.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
It's like anything.
Because they're learning.
The beginning of any process is always where you will manifest the most speed. And that's like that's to me is like a principle in general.
That's a life thing.
Yeah, like you gain more momentum initially than you will down the line. And also I think you have to, in order to gain momentum down the line, the said principle that you're
Yeah.
talking about to me is like, I always language it like this. You have to find the needle moving distinctions, and they're harder to find the further you go.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was just thinking about my favorite athlete was Kobe Bryant. I mean, he's so good that for him to get better, it's going to take a lot more than someone that just stepped on that's never touched a basketball before.
Right.
That growth. I mean, you have to pinpoint those really small things and be meticulous at getting better at that.
So we talked about the barbell RDL. When we talk about push day and we talk about an upper body day or a push day, what are some important things for people to understand, to remember, to know, to be concerned with on that push day? Because obviously, hinge is the lower body movement we just talked about, and hinging is the one I see the most. Right?
Yeah.
And what's the on a push day? What should we be concerned with?
Well, I think on a push day, we first need to understand what it is. So what muscle groups are we using? So on a push day, that's going to be chest, shoulders, and typically triceps.
Anything we're pressing that, like a shoulder press, chest press,
shoulder press,
tricep.
chest press. But it could also include your accessory movements like lateral raises, chest flies. So we don't always need to do compound movement,
Right.
where it's multi-muscle, multi-joint. We can isolate.
Really quick, explain compound movement while we're at it
Okay.
versus like a 2-joint movement versus like a single joint movement.
So a compound movement would be like, in weightlifting, consider like your big three, your squat, bench press, deadlift. So you're using multiple muscles to move the weights through the active range of motion. So compound, multi-muscle, multi-joint, and then isolation movements typically going to be, think about a tricep extension. Your elbows are going to stay in a fixed spot in space, and all I'm doing is moving my wrist down to contract my triceps. So I'm moving down vertically.
So it's basically 2 hinges versus 1 hinge.
Yeah.
Not hinge in the way that we talked about it.
Right.
Two joints moving simultaneously versus just one joint moving simultaneously.
Yep.
Okay. And a push day is what you consider a chest press, a compound movement. You have shoulders and elbows kind of doing the same thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. And then same thing, I mean, like, shoulder press could be considered maybe not as compound, but people can treat that as a heavy compound movement that they may use.
Well, I feel like, I got both joints mobile, right? I got my shoulders and my elbows mobile.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If I'm somebody, so like what I hear a lot in Burn Nation is that, hey, we do arm days a lot. Well, push day, explain the difference for people, like what a push day is.
Yeah.
Or a chest and back day.
Yeah.
Versus an arm day, because they're 2 very different splits, and they're programmed specifically to be upper body days, but to be split into those musculatures.
Right. I think one thing that I've seen this over the years is people associate every arm movement or every upper body exercise as an arm movement.
Right.
But the only arm days that we have, which fall in the same protocol, if we have a push-pull day, we're probably going to have an arm day, like a 95% chance. But a push-pull day is going to be predominantly chest and back, which, yes, you use your arms, but that's not a arm day. But then the following later in the week, that's going to be bicep, triceps. And I think knowing what it is that we're working is super important. It's not every upper body can just be considered arms. Yeah, we have leg days, but I have quads, I have calves, and I have hamstrings, and I have glutes.
Right.
So it's super important to be able to distinguish and treat your legs the same way you would your upper body, because not everything is just arms. Because if you're doing back, I don't want to be using my biceps.
Well, because that's a 2 hinge movement, right?
Yeah.
So we're on an arm day, we're going back to like the single joint movement. Isolation in your tricep, bicep, shoulder even?
Yeah, so we do shoulders a lot on arm day, yeah.
So the shoulders then have a crossover.
Yeah.
But push-pull day, you're tending to want to go more heavy.
Yeah.
Right? More strength-based and then, okay.
Movements are harder, they're more taxing.
Yeah.
So push day, chest, push day is chest and shoulders, back, or pull is going to be back. So your rowing exercises, your pull-ups, anything we do banded on the rigs, pretty much always going to be push-pull exercises.
And your primary mover is your back complex, and then you have your biceps that are there.
Yeah.
They're being worked, but they're not the primary mover.
Yeah.
Right.
They're
What's the word for the secondary mover? Antagonist.
That's antagonist is opposite.
The opposite. What is it? The prime mover, and is it secondary?
It's a secondary mover.
Oh,
so
okay,
like chest press.
I gotta sharpen up, dude. I'm forgetting all this stuff. I gotta keep sharpening. Keep my skills sharp.
Gotta keep you fresh.
Go over the main movement patterns again for everybody. So we've talked about push.
Yep.
We've talked about hinge.
Yep.
What are the other movement patterns that are those two joint compound movement patterns that that are just the normal movement patterns, so everybody can have a lay of the land at what movements they need to get good at?
Yes, I mean, which is really, this is really cool. With the Flex Your Fitness Challenge starting, we have deadlifts as one of the Flex Your Fitness exercises, which is going to be a compound movement where you're working multi-muscle, multi-joints, but that still has a slight hinge to it, but it is different than what a traditional RDL would be, where that's more isolation, and the deadlift is going to be literally everything. It's probably like the hardest full body exercise, especially when you throw a burpee, in there too. But pressing, everything we do in burn, we do presses, hinges, and rows.
Rows.
Well, and
would we call squat?
Lunges.
Would we call lunge?
Yeah, those are the 5 movements that we do. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm thinking about one for every muscle group that we have, and then hip extension. So, glute bridges.
Right. Okay. All right, this is making sense. So then we have functional fitness as our next topic, and I think now we're tying these two things in together. It's like, what does functional fitness mean, first of all?
Well, to me, I relate functional fitness to the exercise we do in the gym should help us be better at our daily life, daily simple activities.
So like when I'm getting all the groceries out of the trunk because Morgan's like, hey, I just got a bunch of groceries.
Yeah.
And I got like 2 kids hanging on my legs wanting to help me, but they're actually not helping me.
Yeah.
I'm actually just grabbing all the groceries out at one time. And then I have a bunch of bags in this hand and I got to press my shoulder up to press the little button. And barely just enough time to hit it. That's what you're talking about. Training for real life.
Yeah, well,
being able to rip the milk jug out of the fridge real fast.
Yeah, or to me, I think about what that example you just gave is that if we're doing farmer's carries upstairs, which is where you're holding 2 dumbbells and pacing the floor, that's practicing for carrying the groceries in as few trips as possible.
Yeah.
So if I can carry the 80s in the gym, why can't I carry the 10 bags of groceries inside the house?
You should get all the bags of groceries.
That's right, the fewer trips, the best.
All the bags. Have them double bag it for you at the grocery, knowing that you're about to farmer's carry these things.
Yeah, because 2 trips is too many.
Yeah,
so I got to be 1.
100%. And nowadays, thankfully, some of the cars have like the little foot wave.
Yeah.
You can do that now.
Yeah.
And that's not everybody. You gotta have privileges to have the foot wave.
Yeah.
My car
doesn't have that.
No, you still got. This functional fitness game. Okay, so functional fitness is mimicking the movements we would need to live a life where strength and mobility empowered us and didn't disempower us.
Well, I think the key word that you used right there is mobility. And I think functional fitness has turned into a lot of being able to be more mobile, especially as we get older. Like, I don't have kids, but if I did when I'm 60 or whatever, I want to be able to pick my kids up and not throw my back out doing that.
Man,
if I want to be able to grab them off the floor.
When you're 60.
Well, maybe
that might be grown men by then. Come here, son. You're rubbing your beards together.
But grandkids or whatever, I want to be able to pick them up off the floor and not feel like, man, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
Because I'm sure that's important for you.
100%. Picking up the kids every day when I get home is something that's a non-negotiable for me.
Yeah.
Like physically picking them up.
Yeah.
I might have to transition to mentally and emotionally at some point because they'll be too damn big for me to pick up. But I'll still try for as long as I can, and I'll keep working out at Burn, doing my compound movements to make sure I can do that.
Yeah, but I think
so. I get it. Yeah.
I just think that functional fitness has become much more important. That, especially like in our day and age, I think people are really starting to focus on less of and you talk about this, the less I need to cut out more that I can gain from just simply exercising and being healthier in general. It's not always about the swimsuit and what the scale says. It's a lot more about how can I feel during my daily life? How accomplished am I doing these small little tasks every day? What have I done that's now gotten easier because I've simply decided to show up to the gym?
We ask that question at the end of camp all the time. What's something that you have never done before today? Or raise your hand if you did something you never done before today. And that is that. I think that's an important. That's a good place to end on this first section. Is, are you challenging yourself to the point where you are doing something you've never done before on an almost everyday basis?
Yeah.
I would say that is a good rule to keep yourself ahead of the functional curve that you would need to be for fitness in order to maintain, maintain your ability to execute life normally and make it easy.
Yeah, because you don't want to become complacent. You don't want to do that in life, and you don't want to do that with your fitness goals either. So the more times you can find yourself being as uncomfortable as possible, you're just building calluses, so that way you can every time get stronger and stronger and stronger in life.
Luke,
or in the gym.
I'm loving this conversation. I'm loving it. This is great. I'm learning a lot. I hope you guys are learning a lot. This is let me ask you this one more question on this first episode here. Remember, everyone, there's 2 episodes. This first one with Luke is going to be all around fitness, like we're talking about right now. The next one's going to be all around nutrition. Before we end episode 1 and move on to episode 2, is there anything from the functional fitness realm, from that lens, that you'd like to share with everyone?
I think maybe I'll just wrap all these up into one thing, and I kind of alluded to it. Being uncomfortable as possible. You guys see in the gym, if we have rep ranges within the gym, this is something I'm super passionate about, and at Burn I have the opportunity to train trainers all across the nation. But if we have a set rep range, let's say it's 10 reps, I want the 10th rep to be the hardest rep possible. I don't want anything that you guys do in the gym to be comfortable. I want you guys to step out of feeling complacent. I'm going to get stronger here. And I had a story. Ashley, she's the head trainer at Burn Bootcamp Mandarin, and she just had a baby. She just came back, and it was chest press day. We were doing like hex presses, so dumbbells together, pressing vertically through the middle. And she grabbed weights, and I looked at her. I said, "That's not heavy enough." And it was for 15 reps, and she got 34 reps because I made her do that many. And I used it as a way to segue. Hey, like, don't ever use those again because you are too strong to do that. So don't sell yourself short. Be 5 to 10 pounds stronger than what you think in your mind.
So I have one question before we wrap. Why stay at 10 to 15 reps rather than 35?
Well, the 35.
Is it more and more? Is it more and more?
Well, the 35 here was to say, hey, let's get you heavier so you can do less.
Right.
Why do 35 reps or 40 reps when if you go 10 to 15 pounds heavier, now we only have to do 15.
Right.
Now you can recover a little bit faster, prep for your next set, and then go again.
So now
I'm more efficient. We only have 45 minutes,
right.
and I want to get the most out of my 45 minutes. So if I can do it more efficiently by working smarter, now I can work harder and smarter in the same time and get more results.
Okay, last thing is explain smarter from the lens of hypertrophy. Why is training in hypertrophy rep range smarter than somebody of her caliber, somebody who is clearly well-seasoned doing 50, 40, 30 reps?
Yeah. So when I think of working smart, if we only have, I want to be able to work in hypertrophy range, which is typically 8 to 12, maybe 15 is what we would consider that.
I think NASM says 8 to 15, and that's the widest range I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it's usually like 8 to 10 or 8 to 12.
Yeah,
but
I think, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's a good. I like to use the widest range just because it covers everything.
That's fair.
8 to 15, if that's fair.
Yeah, but I think if I want to build as much muscle as possible, I want to be able to stimulate as much strain on my muscles as possible. And if I want to do that in 8 to 15 reps, that means now I can progressively overload. I can start to get stronger. If I'm taking things out of my prescribed rep ranges, now I'm not working as optimally, so where it's going to be the most beneficial. But if you're working smart, you're thinking in your head, okay, man, last week, I know in chest presses I did 30s. Now this week I might need to try 30s for 5 more reps or go up and weight. And now I'm going to challenge myself there until I get to 15. Then I'm going to go up again. And you just continuously cycle these habits over and over again, and then it becomes just who you are as an individual when you show up to the gym. I'm coming to the gym and I'm going to get stronger every single day because I'm holding myself accountable to what I did last week, and I'm going to do it a little bit better.
All right, everyone, part 1 with Luke Smith. All right, we're going to part 2 for nutrition. Before we do that, we're going to take you guys out. Luke, you'll do 2 claps on 2. Before we do that, it's a subscribe call to action. Subscribe to the channel, okay? We got Luke here, the rest of the trainers from Burn Nation. You guys can't miss these episodes. And if you appreciate Luke, you appreciate me, please flex on that subscribe button and leave a review. Your words, it's my oxygen. I can't breathe without your words, all right? So make sure you're leaving those reviews on Apple Podcasts. Guys, Luke, take us out. 2 claps on 2.
2 claps on 2. 1, 2.